Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking all about my experience at FIT, otherwise known as the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. I have literally refilmed this video way too many times to count. I want it to be perfect so that if you are watching this at home and you're considering applying to FIT, or as a matter of fact, any other school in New York, I highly suggest you watch this video. I'm going to put the time slots by the sections and the topics that I'll be talking about within FIT. So I'm going to put the time slot for how the classes are, how the professors are, how the dorms are, etc. And then at the very end, I'm going to share some tips with you guys on what you do if you're in fashion design and how you can further develop your success in school and even out of school. So stay tuned if you're interested, and let's get into it. So a little bit of a backstory on how I decided I wanted to be a fashion designer goes way back to when I was like 3 or 5 years old. I loved to sit in my grandmother's house and draw out outfits, and I loved to sketch, and I absolutely loved to grab just any material I could find. For instance, one time I grabbed white tulle from my grandmother's bin of like fabric design supplies, because she actually really liked to sew as a hobby, but she never studied fashion design herself. So I would grab things from her bin and I made myself a little wedding dress. Fashion design is something I've always respected, and I just didn't realize that it was a career until I was maybe 18 or 19. So when I was 19, I believe I had just graduated from high school, and it was probably one of the most confusing years of my life, because you are so young that you kind of go through a phase where you think that you need to study what your parents want you to study and like what makes them happy or what sounds impressive, like studying business or studying psychology, which I'm not even kidding, I considered those two majors as well. Another thing I was interested in was like modeling. I have always wanted to model since I was 16. So yeah, just I was very confused as to what I wanted to do in my life. Then I went to community college, and I was never required to work a job. I'm very fortunate and very lucky that my parents have always supported me financially, like growing up. I really am. I know people, and I take my hat off and like have so much respect for people that have always worked a job since they were like 14 to support themselves. But I mostly took the job out of curiosity. I wanted to like expand my horizons and expand my knowledge into what my hobbies and my interests were. And I thought it would be a fun thing to work a retail job at Anthropologie. So I did. And that was really the moment where I realized that fashion is a business, essentially. And from that moment on, I then told my parents I wanted to study at FIT. I found the school online, and it was one of the first schools that I saw that really caught my attention. Then so came Parsons and SCAD. And I do not recommend anyone do this, but after touring in New York City, Parsons and FIT, I only applied to FIT, and I told my parents I applied to all three. Like I said, don't recommend doing that whatsoever. But I had a really good gut intuition telling me that this was like my school and this was what I was going to get into. So at the time, I just wanted to put all of my 150% energy into applying into FIT, and therefore my other applications kind of fell through. So on Thanksgiving Day of, I think, 2013, I got a letter from my dad, and my dad told me to open it in front of my whole family to see if I had gotten accepted into the following spring semester of fashion design. And I was so nervous and so scared, but as I opened the letter, I realized that I had got into FIT, and I just started sobbing completely. I just started crying from a sense of relief and a sense of joy that I had worked my butt off 3 months prior to applying and learning how to sew, because I knew nothing, and I had my mom help me photograph my portfolio and the 3 pieces that I designed to show in my portfolio in my living room. So I was just so happy, and it's a great memory to look back on. It really is. It's like one of my favorites. A little note about the portfolio. So when I was applying, it was required to take a photograph of 3 pieces that you sew yourself, and then come up with 2 ready-to-wear pieces and 2 evening pieces. The 3 designs that they make you photograph, like, you really have to do your best on, because they want you to show your sewing skills, and they want to see how like much you can sew and how good you are at it. And I'll insert photos here. These photos mean so much to me. They are some of the first designs like I ever really put to execution, and they just, like I said, mean so much to me. I photographed them when I was super skinny in my living room. I made my mom technically photograph me with my Canon camera, and I was like posing and trying to make sure that they looked perfect. All right, so we get into the classes. The classes at FIT are quite interesting. The coursework itself is super difficult, but before I get into how difficult everything is, I'm just gonna tell you, every semester will go something like this. You'll have about 5 core classes that one of them is fashion history, pattern making, draping, illustration, and like a computer programming class. So you could be studying anything from Photoshop all the way to Illustrator and or knitwear software. And FIT believes that these 5 classes are essential for you to continue taking all throughout your degree so that you keep sharpening your skills. But then you'll have electives that are also mandatory, but that you can pick from a very like lengthy and versatile list. So you have anything from corsetry to accessories design to tailoring techniques. And it's just really fun because taking these classes within fashion, there's so many different fields that you can actually go into when you graduate. So these classes are fun because they really help you narrow down what you like, what you're good at, and what you don't like. So something to note that gave me the incentive and made me feel comfortable in transitioning from community college to FIT was the fact that FIT actually allowed me to transfer a lot of my courses and credits that I had already taken and accomplished in community college in Texas, where I lived at the time, to New York, which made my life so much easier and actually saved me so much time. If you have credits at a prior school and you're thinking of going to Parsons or SCAD, I don't think it's easy. Trust me, it's very easy at FIT, and just keep that in mind. In fashion design classes as well, you get a big sense of community that you don't get in a lot of majors. For example, if you study fashion business or merchandising or marketing, you're not going to get that sense of community because you'll be working in group settings for your projects for class, versus when you study fashion design, you kind of work independently on your own designs. So a lot of downtime that you have, you want to talk to the other people in your class. As to where fashion business merchandisers, they kind of get tired of working in groups and they just want to be left alone after class. So I can honestly say I loved that sense of friendship that you get with your fellow fashion designer friends and like colleagues, because they understand all the struggles that you're going through. They understand how frustrating that one professor is and so forth. So you guys can like really like relate. Okay, so apart from classes, I'm going to talk about professors. The professors at FIT are honestly some of the most iconic characters and people that I've ever met in my life. If you ever have the pleasure of taking Professor Stippleman or Professor Uvinio for illustration, I highly recommend it. They are amazing. I just think they're like characters from a movie, to be honest. And another thing I love about their professors is that they're really knowledgeable. They know what they're talking about, because FIT has a requirement that they're not allowed to teach unless they hit 10 years working in the industry. So you really do get a sense that they know what they're talking about. They can definitely talk about their fashion design working experiences out of college to you and just really give you an idea of what it really is like. So even with their work and their homework, you get a sense of that as well, because they want you to be prepared. And I highly suggest having a good relationship with all your professors, because they are so well connected in the industry, and it never hurts to reach out to them. I've reached out to a couple to like review my portfolio at the end of my bachelor degree, and some were super helpful, some gave me tips, some told me to be patient. It just really helps to be on good terms with your professors. Okay, so fashion design students, we had a saying at FIT that you could tell who's who on campus depending on how they were dressed, because fashion design students would be wearing sweatpants and like huge bags and like pattern paper in their hand, and just looked like a hot mess, plus like a bag lady. Like anyone that you saw on campus that was a bag lady was probably in fashion design, and anyone that was like super glammed up, had their makeup on fleek, and was wearing like their hand-me-down Chanel bag from their parents, that was probably somebody from fashion merchandising and marketing or whatever, because they have the time to get dressed and get ready for school, as to where us fashion design people, all we have time to do is sleep and put on sweatpants and roll out of bed and go do it all over again the next day. So yeah. Okay, so now we can talk about the dorms. So in FIT, there are 3 dorms that are right across from the school on 27th Street. There are alumni, co-ed, and Nagler. I personally had the pleasure of only living in alumni and in Kaufman. So Kaufman is the 4th dorm. It is the one furthest away from the school. It is on 31st Street and 9th Avenue, I believe. And it was honestly like my favorite dorm. They have a gym below the basement. They have laundry on every floor. Same with alumni, laundry on every floor. They both have work rooms. The only ones that don't really have work rooms, and they're a little bit like more run down and a lot older, are co-ed and Nagler. I highly suggest trying to get a spot like reserved in alumni or Kaufman. Like I said, I had great experiences in both, and I recently just walked past alumni, and alumni got this crazy renovation done in their lobby. They look like, it looks really nice, so I highly suggest that. So I lived in the dorms for 2 years, and that's technically 4 semesters. Then my 3rd year of college, I actually got an apartment on 34th Street, and I'm not gonna say where exactly, but it was the best. I was still super close to school, and I would pretty much walk every morning. You don't have to get a apartment, but I wanted to, because I wanted to qualify as a state resident, so that way they could cut down my tuition. But the dorms are a great experience. I think anyone should have. I mean, you get to learn with roommates, and that in itself is like a huge experience that I think is important, and so on. I actually had a lot of success sneaking in a couple boys here and there at the dorms, so if anyone wants a video, let me know. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want a lawsuit from FIT, but yeah, kind of crazy. Just like a fun little story time. I snuck in a boy. I made him jump over a fence and run past the security camera, and then I opened the door for him on the other side. Yeah, fun times. The city of New York makes you grow up a lot faster than anywhere else in the world. Like, you see everything here, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you move here. It's something that I can only say, but you can only experience for yourself, and you'll understand why I say that. And then in terms of what to do in the city, there is so much to do in the city, you will never get bored. There are always like amazing art exhibitions at museums. We have the MoMA, we have the Met Museum. The Met Museum always has these like fabulous like fashion exhibitions that I'm obsessed with. I've gone every single year that I can to the fashion exhibitions. And Then in the summer, we have like movie screenings at Bryant Park where you can like sit on the lawn and like watch an old classic movie, or I think you can even watch newer movies up on a huge screen in the middle of this like gorgeous park with like skylines all around you. You can also like bike everywhere in the city. You can take a run in Central Park. Like there's just so much to do. And there's always a party like next door around the corner. And if you're into clubbing, you can also meet what's called a promoter, and you can go to a club. And promoters' jobs are basically to make a club or a restaurant look cooler and like have the best looking people. So if you're ever contacted by a promoter, just take it as flattery. I definitely was into the club scene when I first came into college my freshman year, but I'm more of a bar person now. So yeah, a lot of clubs are in the meatpacking area of Manhattan. So you have Catch, which used to be one of my favorites, Tao Downtown, Avenue, One Oak, and then you have Lavo, which is another one. There's so many. I'm gonna wrap this video up with just telling you a couple of tips about fashion design and like what I've found will help you be successful in this career and in this major. I will say that number one, intern as much as you can. Build those internships on your resume. Don't waste your time too much like exploring the city and partying, because you're gonna have plenty of time to do that when you graduate college. Just focus on your schooling and do your best in your internships so that by the time you graduate college, you have like 4 internships on your plate and you can get hired immediately. I've had the mistake personally of not interning enough, and I've had other friends not intern enough to where companies don't think that you have enough experience so that you can work for them as an assistant designer. The second thing is, while you're in school, develop thick skin. You will need it. People in fashion are super opinionated. They're always gonna have something to say about your work. You're gonna have to just be really strong-headed and be open-minded to advice and suggestions so that you're always improving yourself, but at the same time, know what pieces of advice to take and know which ones to like tune out. I just think they make you a better designer when you do listen and when you are opening to constructive criticism and not take it from a personal side. Third thing, have and make so many to-do lists and organize your time. Fourth thing, in hindsight, looking back, I can't tell you how much I wish I practiced sewing and getting better at it a little more than I did before going to school. So if you're an advanced sewer, that's amazing. You're gonna do great. You can probably get your homework done a lot faster than the average student. So just keep it up and try to learn how to sew before you get there. But don't discourage yourself at the same time if you don't know how to sew. Just learn how to at least thread a machine and like do small things like that. Number 5, work retail. So I can't tell you how many times I've found in my life that I've worked retail and that it's helped me immensely in knowing how to mix and match tops with pants and create like how to create looks and how to merchandise the looks. All of this is due to retail, 110%. Retail helps you have that business mindset while you're designing to know instinctively what to put together and what not to put together. And number 6, make an effort to make friends in different majors. Why do I say this? So even though your classmates are your competition, in the exterior world, when you graduate college and you all are trying to fight to get a job, I can't tell you how helpful it is to have friends in photography or in art direction or in communication design, because you guys will have projects, like I said, in and out of school that you're gonna need each other for. Photographers are not photographers unless they like have objects or people or clothing to photograph. It's also their job. So just really try to like branch out of your shell in fashion design and like communicate and like be a part of the clubs that FIT has and talk to other majors. It's so helpful, and collaborating is a really great thing in the fashion world. It's like expression of self, but using art and then like grabbing different ideas from two minds and like really creating something amazing that you wouldn't have even thought of. I just have to say too, fashion design is not an easy major. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it one bit. It is intense, it is hard, it will make you cry sometimes, but on the reverse, it is one of the most beautiful decisions I think I ever made for myself, because when you consider yourself an artist and you have so many ideas in your head that you want to execute with your hands and like make it a tangible thing, finally seeing the final product makes everything worth it. Everything you've ever dreamt of, any idea that you've ever had for a jacket, for a shirt, for like fabric, like anything. Once it's done, it's all worth it. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope you can take something from it. And if you have any extra questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Do not leave yet. Press the like button if you really did enjoy this video, and hit subscribe if you want to see more fashion related content in New York. Bye guys.